Good evening, everyone. Man, we've got a tough topic to take on today. Um, and it is especially tough because of what I spent a couple of hours today doing. In my studio today, just outside of DC, I had my friend Daniel Hodges in, and we sat down for an interview, really more of a discussion than an interview. You all undoubtedly know Daniel Hodges. There are four police officers who have become the face of law enforcement heroism on January 6, 2021, at the U.S. Capitol. And they represent the hundreds, indeed thousands. I think there was 1,000 MPD officers there that deployed that day, self-deployed, many of them. Um, they have become the face of heroism. And those are Harry Dunn, Mike Fanone, Aquilino Gonell, and Daniel Hodges. They were the four who testified several times before Congress. These men have testified in so many criminal trials as the victims because they were all beaten damn near to death, many of them, some more than others. But Daniel Hodges, you all may remember, there is that horrific and infamous photo now of him having his head squeezed and damn near crushed as he tried to hold the line, as he tried to keep the angry mob from breaking into the Capitol and chasing down and potentially killing legislators. You saw his head getting squeezed. They were trying to gouge his eye out. He was screaming in pain. You've seen the videos. And while Daniel was here today talking about how he's still an active duty MPD officer, I have such enormous respect for him. He's a very understated, circumspect young man who's been a police officer for more than a decade, patrolling the streets of Washington, D.C. And now he's got he was also a National Guard for 6.5 years. And now he's got National Guard troops in the city that he patrols. And he said he talks with them, he watches them, and they are doing nothing. They're doing nothing. They have no mission. They don't know why they're there. You know what many of them are doing? Mulching and weed whacking. So they're basically, soldiers, be as soldiers as landscapers. But that's not the reason it was so upsetting today. The reason it was so upsetting today is because Ashley Babbitt, the rioter and insurrectionist, who we all saw commit crimes on video, both local crimes in violation of DC law and federal crimes. We saw her trying to climb through a busted window of a barricaded door that was protecting the Speaker of the House, the Speaker's lobby, while they were frantically trying to evacuate legislators. She's trying to climb through and, breach the Capitol. And at that moment, she was kind of the point of the spear, getting through that, trying to climb through that busted window of a barricaded door. And an officer discharged one round, struck her, and killed her. That's a tragedy anytime anybody gets killed, especially in my city where I was working murder cases for 22 of my 30 years as a prosecutor. Um, but she's an insurrectionist. She was a rioter. She was trying to, in a very real sense, bring democracy at least to a screeching halt and perhaps help to overthrow it by stopping the certification of a presidential election, depriving we the people, we the voters, of the value of our vote. What a That's what she was doing that day. She's an Air Force vet, and she's also a conspiracy theorist, Pizzagate, and the QAnon, and the whole nonsense. The person not really able to grasp reality and the truth of what's going on, separate fact from fiction, either unable or unwilling to do so. And she bought into Donald Trump's bullshit about their votes being stolen, their election being rigged, their favorite president being taken away from them. And she followed Donald Trump's command to go to the Capitol, fight like hell, or you won't have a country anymore. Now stop the certification, stop the steal. That was his criminal command on January 6th. And up until now, up until today, she was denied military honors in connection with her funeral, her memorial service. And today, the Air Force announced they would give her full military honors. They're going to honor her at a ceremony. Obviously, this was at Donald Trump's urging, prompting, insistence. I have no doubt about that. This is probably not the military deciding, on its own to change course, because up until now, she had been denied military honors properly. And when I saw that, and I'm going to go back to Daniel Hodges in a minute because I want to juxtapose two things. When I saw that, I instantly thought to myself, I was active duty Army for 6.5 years, and I loved military service. If they hadn't promoted me out of the courtroom, I might have spent my entire career as an Army JAG. I thought, this decision to honor Ashley Babbitt dishonors every single military member in the United States of America. It dishonors them. Why? Because every single one of them, as did I, took an oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And on January 6th, Ashley Babbitt was a domestic enemy of the United States, of the Constitution, of our system of government. And honoring her, giving her military honors, dishonors, disrespects, shits on, every military member in the United States. It's disgusting. It's obscene. It's despicable. It's fucking wrong. It is wrong. I know this is all Donald Trump's attempt to rewrite history, but we're not going to let him do it. We're not going to let him do it. Now, here is the super upsetting part. As I sat here today with Daniel Hodges, and we went out to lunch afterwards, we hung out. He has become a friend. Harry Dunn has become a friend. Aquilino Gonell has become a friend. I'll be interviewing him here next week. Mike Fanone is not only a friend, but I worked murder cases with Mike in the streets of D.C. decades ago. I've known him for a very, very long time, and we've worked closely together over the years. These are the heroes of January 6th. Do you know, and I don't think we've talked about this before, but I talked about it with Daniel today. Do you know that in 2022, before the Republicans in Congress started to completely deny the truth of what happened on January 6th, there was a federal law passed mandating by law that there be a memorial, a large plaque created and displayed in the Capitol, honoring the men and women of law enforcement who protected the Capitol that day, saved the lives in a very real sense of the legislators, and kept democracy up and running. These men and women saved democracy that day. Donald Trump's angry mob, the insurrectionists, tried to end democracy that day, or at least stop it dead in its tracks for as long as they could. And the federal law requires a plaque, a memorial honoring these men and women who saved the Capitol and the Union on January 6th, and that it must by law be displayed in the U.S. Capitol. And here we are years later, and there was a deadline set by statute. Years later, that deadline has passed. MAGA Mike Johnson has it tucked away in a basement storage room somewhere in the Capitol, and he refuses to obey the federal law and display it. And Daniel Hodges and Harry Dunn had to sue the United States Congress. More accurately, I have the complaint here. More accurately, Harry Dunn and Daniel Hodges plaintiffs sued Thomas Austin. Who is Thomas Austin? He is the architect of the Capitol, and they sued him in his official capacity because he is responsible for displaying the memorial plaque in the Capitol. And I'm not going to I'm so tempted to read the first three paragraphs because it summarizes, what is up here, what prompted this lawsuit to be filed by Daniel Hodges and Harry Dunn. But and there may be others joining this lawsuit. Can you imagine? Yeah, fucking Mike Johnson is despicable, says Penny. I'm with you, Penny. Um, can you imagine? Can you imagine the men and women of law enforcement who had the hell beat out of them by Donald Trump's insurrectionists on January 6th, and then those attackers were pardoned? Can you imagine they can't even get Congress to obey the federal law and display this plaque honoring their service and their sacrifice on January 6th? But Ashley Babbitt, the tip of the insurrectionist spear, trying to bust into the Capitol to get after legislators, she gets full military honors. Put those two things right next to each other and ask yourselves, what country are we living in? It's more like Kim Jong-un's North Korea or Vladimir Putin's Russia than the United States of America, a once proud country with lots of problems, yes, but we were working on them. We've been moving in the right direction. I am a huge believer, and one of my favorite quotes is from Martin Luther King Jr. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Man, we got a kink in that arc right now, something fierce, and Trump and company are trying to turn the arc back, bending away from justice. And this is a prime example. Military honors for an insurrectionist, but the actual heroes can't even get Congress to comply with the law to recognize their heroism. I don't have the words. I got a lot of cuss words, and I could spit them all out right now to describe just how despicable MAGA Mike Johnson and the Republicans in Congress are doing this to the people who saved their asses, saved their lives that day. Have you no shame? Have you no shame? There are no words for this one, friends. I'll be posting my my conversation with Daniel Hodges that I had today in the coming days, and you'll see us talking about it. He's a wonderful young man. Everybody's young to me now. Very thoughtful, understated, kind of soft-spoken, circumspect, wicked, dry sense of humor, too. Um, he said something the other day at our Team Justice gathering that stuck with me. He's policing the streets of Washington, D.C. every day and has been doing it for more than a decade, since 2014, and he intends to stay there for his entire career because he enjoys policing and he respects the people and the citizens of Washington, D.C., and I'll bet they love him out there in the streets because of the way he comports himself. But he said to me, when it comes to these ICE raids where ICE agents are trampling over the legal and constitutional rights of undocumented immigrants, here's what Daniel said that stuck right here. He said, I will quit before I'll kidnap a brown person. I will quit the police force before I kidnap a brown person. That's who he is. That's what he stands for. And that's why guys like Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, they were more than willing to lose their job, their status, their power, their influence, maybe not their power, by standing up for democracy, by standing up to a criminal president. These are two Republicans who said, our jobs are not more important to us. Our congressional seats and offices and perks are not more important to us than the health and viability of American democracy. Boy, I wish we had more like them in the Republican Party. I actually saw something Adam Kinzinger posted about today's decision by the Air Force to reverse course and give her military honors. And he said Ashley Babbitt dishonored her service by committing insurrection against our country. While her death is absolutely tragic and I wish it hadn't happened, the Air Force giving her honors is in itself a dishonor. It is a dishonor to all of the men and women of the United States Armed Forces who literally took an oath to support the Constitution against domestic enemies like Ashley Babbitt. Mm. It's a tough pill. It's a tough pill. All right, everybody, let me scroll up, and I have missed all of your comments because I am a little bit inside myself today. Noel says, Glenn for AG. You know, oh man, let me be AG for a day. I swear I would turn the criminal justice system on its head. I would use it to go after the ruling class criminals in politics. I don't care if it's big pharma, big oil, the military industrial complex, big tech, big entertainment. I would go after the ruling class criminals, the people who do enormous damage, victimize large swaths of the American population. These are the people that DOJ gives non-prosecution agreements to and makes them pay fines and penalties and interest and back taxes. And they work that into their operating budget, and they continue to commit crime and victimize large swaths of the American population. And we at the Department of Justice never seem to learn our lesson, but instead we go after the kid who snatches a purse or sells a rock of crack, kids who probably don't. And I say kids, you can be 18, 20, 25, 30, you're still a kid to me. Young men, generally men and women, some women, who are out there committing, relatively low-level crimes, often born of poverty, lack of education, lack of opportunity, alcohol problems, drug addiction, mental health problems in need of treating that go untreated, homelessness, joblessness. We know what causes chronic low-level crime, and yet we do nothing about it. We don't change the way we approach it. This is not where I was intending to go, but can you stick with me for another minute? Another few minutes, friends? I think one of the most fundamental, and I've been working on this for a very long time, and I don't have a lot of hope that we're going to be able to attack the problem of a lack of ethics in government at this moment in our nation's history, but we will get to a point where we can begin to move forward. I think we need a renaissance of ethics in government. We're going to get to a point where we can begin to make progress again. Right now, we're just, holding off the invaders at the gate. That's what we're trying to do to save American democracy. But just stick with me for another minute. And it's not just because I like to hear myself talk. It's because I like to talk with you all. I think one of the most fundamental criminal justice reforms that we need is in what we call intake. When police officers make arrests, they bring those arrests, those cases, those file folders, jackets, we call them, with the police paperwork in them. They bring them to us, the prosecutors. And we have to decide what to do with each and every arrestee. And unfortunately, we just have a binary choice. We can charge them, decline to charge them. In DC, when we charge them, we call it papering a case. When we decline to charge them, we call it no papering a case. There's another way I refer to that binary choice. Put them in the system, kick them to the street. Put them in the system, kick them to the street. Those are the only two options we have. Here is what happens as a result of us only having two options. Paper them, charge them, put them in the system, no paper them, decline to charge them, kick them to the street. We know that when people are put into the system, the criminal justice system, and we just mindlessly run them through, convict them, maybe have them have a judge sentence them to a period of incarceration, they come out the other end worse for wear. They come out the other end at the end of their period of incarceration more likely to reoffend, There's a great federal public defender in Washington, D.C. She's the number two person behind A.J. Kramer. These are people that I worked with for years and have enormous respect and regard and admiration for. Her name is Shelley Peterson. I hope she doesn't mind me spitting her name out. And she said, Glenn, on the rare occasion that I have a defendant that I'm representing who doesn't have some significant mental health challenges, doesn't have PTSD, for example, and they go into the prison system, every last one of them comes out with significant mental health challenges. Many of them come out with PTSD as a result of what they've experienced inside the prison system. And it makes them more likely to reoffend, not less likely. Rehabilitation is a myth, unfortunately. And, so part that informs, and she told me this years ago, and that has always informed my opinion about how we need to do better on that first day when that arrestee comes to us, to me. And I have to make the decision, put them in the system, kick them to the street. We know if we put them in the system, they're going to come out worse for wear. Sometimes you have to put them in the system, especially when it's violent crime. You have to vindicate the rights of the victim. You have to keep the community safe. But so much, thousands and thousands and thousands of our cases each year involve low-level chronic crime where nobody's getting hurt. Maybe stealing cars. They're literally, in serial fashion, stealing deodorant and toothpaste from the CVS. I mean, that is something we see all day, every day. There's low-level drug dealing. There's low-level violent crime. Strong arm robberies. There's things like that. Burglaries, home burglaries. When we put them in the system, they come out worse on the other end, and they're more likely to reoffend. And now we've got more cases in the system, more victims being created as a result of people reoffending. If you kick them to the street, you're not doing anybody any good. Now, the victimization of the victim in the case does not get addressed because you're not prosecuting the person who committed the crime. They're not getting the help they need, and they're getting a message reinforced that I guess I can do it without any accountability because they didn't put me in the system. Think about it, friends. The binary choice of put them in the system, kick them to the street is a lose-lose proposition. So why can't we do it better? Why don't we do it better? The answer is we can do it better. We can. You know what I would propose? You trust me, a prosecutor, to make that all-important decision at that moment. Charge or don't charge, paper or don't paper, put them in the system, kick them to the street. That is an enormously consequential responsibility that I had my whole career, and that you entrusted me with as a public servant, as a prosecutor. Why don't you trust me with 6 or 8 or 10 options? Put them in the system and kick them to the street. Will always have to be 2 of the 6, 8, or 10 options. But how about one of the options is, rather than putting them in the system or kicking them to the street, one of the options is addressing what it is that is creating the chronic crime being committed by that person. You can discern it pretty easily by their criminal history, by an interview of them in real time. Everybody gets interviewed on the day they're arrested, right before they're presented in court. You can do it with quick interviews of friends and family members and teachers and associates. What does that person need to break the cycle of chronic crime? Is it drug treatment? Is it mental health treatment? Is it a home if they're homeless? Is it a job if they're jobless? Is it an education, a GED, if they lack an education? What is it? Because all of those things that I just described are responsible for the majority of the low-level chronic crime. So why only give me, the prosecutor, that binary option, put them in the system, kick them to the street, where we know they'll end up worse for wear, regardless of which of those 2 options we choose? Give me a full menu of options that are designed to address the cycle of low-level chronic crime so that we can help move that person out of that cycle. This can be done. This can be done in a cost effective way because it's going to cost a lot more if you um, have people getting out and reoffending because now you're running through the system and that is very expensive. They are, if they're indigent, and most of our defendants in DC are, they're getting a lawyer appointed to them, thank goodness, at taxpayer expense. The criminal justice system costs a lot to run, the prison system costs a lot to run. But if you could break the cycle and start to move these people out of the system altogether, by not just putting them in the system, kicking them to the street, but having 8 or 10 options to choose from to address their need. You can put them in a diversionary program, keep a potential criminal charge over their head. So if they don't take advantage of what you're trying to do to help them, okay, well then maybe they're a lost cause, at least at that moment in their lives. Nobody's ever a completely lost cause. But why can't we reform the criminal justice system in this way on the front end? The intake process, the charging decision. Do you know how much good we could do for human beings, first and foremost, helping them break out of that chain of low-level chronic crime? Um, and for society, for the taxpayer, we're going to reduce recidivism. We're going to reduce creating new victims by doing things mindlessly the way we've always done them. These things are possible, friends. These things are possible. We just have to have politicians and people in government who care, who are willing to do the hard work of fixing what we all know has been broken for a very, very long time. Yeah, just make me AG for a day. I would upset the apple cart, turn the priorities on their heads, and actually reform in ways that make sense. They're win-win. Reduce recidivism, save the taxpayers money, and help human beings. We can do this. Not now, not today, not in the Trump administration, but we can do this. We're going to come out of this dark period. We're going to come back into the light on the rule of law front. And that's when we have to take these challenges on. We have to. We can do better. Everybody, and I see the numbers up there, and you all have stayed with me. You haven't fled because there goes Glenn running his mouth at length again. So thank you for sticking with me. It's cathartic for me to talk about these things and maybe inspire people to contact their elected officials and say, there are better ways to do this. We can govern ourselves better. We can. We seem to choose not to, but we can govern ourselves better. All right, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to be back with you here tomorrow night. Yes, it's Friday night, and I'm sure you all have better things to do than jump on with this old prosecutor. But I hope you will. I'll be on around 8:30, and we'll see what tomorrow holds in store. But we'll be at it again tomorrow. Thank you, friends.